you have experienced a situation like this, or have at least watched it on the HGTV channel. That's one of my indulgences, other than the New York Yankees this time of the year, is to watch home and garden television. My favorite show is Flip or Flop. This is the scenario. You have just moved into a newly renovated home with hardwood floors, fresh paint, new sod on the lawn, and potpourri in every room. All is well until you discover a plumbing leak in the basement. Well, it shouldn't have been a surprise since the galvanized plumbing is 60 years old. So, you call the plumber. The plumber comes over to investigate the problem. After a brief meeting, you acknowledge the need to replace the worn-out plumbing throughout the house. Then comes your inevitable question. Well, sir, what is the verdict? How much is this going to cost? To which the plumber replies, you don't want to know. Cost awareness is at the heart of our portion from Luke's Gospel this morning. The trailing crowds again swamp Jesus. Among the crowds are folk who want to jump on the kingdom bandwagon with great initial enthusiasm. Among the crowds are those looking for a great adventure. Among the crowds are those who see this Jesus as their entrance ramp to the easy street. But Jesus turns to them with a reality check. Following him is more than a one-time statement of intention. Following Jesus means saying goodbye to a narrow sense of family. Following Jesus means confessing the faith, even if it means ridicule, persecution, and death. Following Jesus means saying farewell to a tight grip on material possessions. The Master is quick to remind all present and future disciples that communion with him comes at a cost. Do you build a tower without doing careful cost estimates? Does a king wage war without first calculating how much it will take to defeat the enemy and establish a more lasting peace? Undergirding each of Jesus' illustrations is the path of his own life toward a cross in Jerusalem. At the heart of his uncompromising claim of commitment on every single disciple is his resolute focus on his Father's will. At the heart of his demand, cast over every facet of life, from the inner life to the wallet, is Jesus' awareness of the cost of his own life as he inches toward the real estate called Golgotha. There would be no crown without a cross, no restoration for a groaning creation without pain from an innocent servant. All this sacrifice at a price is set in the face of the world's calls for success without sacrifice, power without pain, and commitment without personal risk. New Testament scholar Frederick Donker exposes our temptation to downplay the cost of true discipleship. Following Jesus is no invitation to trivial adventure. A church that encourages its followers offers to play it safe and to conform with the substandard practices of surrounding society not only invites disaster, but loses all claim to association with the revolutionary cause of the kingdom of God. Beloved of God, we are called to step beyond the comfort zones of our commitment. Our regular approach is to follow Christ if it does not cost too much, to follow Christ if it does not interrupt our lives too much, to follow Christ inasmuch as he embellishes and affirms the things that we have already deemed to be important. We're not alone. The poor disciples didn't fare much better in their following Jesus. When Jesus called the disciples, they had no clue what they were called to be about. They followed him until they saw the shadows of the cross rising before them, and then they fell asleep in the Garden of Gethsemane, short of the cross, where their master would die for their sinful shortcuts of discipleship. At the cross, God paid the ultimate price for our salvation and our transformation as God's people. The cost is inestimable. The cost we cannot calculate. What a cost. The precious blood of Christ shed for you and for all people for the forgiveness of sin. Luther is powerfully poetic in the Small Catechism when he confesses the cost of God's grace. At great cost, Jesus has saved and redeemed me, a lost and condemned person. He has freed me from sin, death, and the power of the devil, not with silver or gold, but with his holy and precious blood and his innocent suffering and death. Years ago, this time of the year, I seem to have these reflections. Years ago, when my son Ethan and I were much younger, he and I were traveling together in the car over in Ewing, New Jersey, on the way to preschool. I was taking him over there to drop him off. The strangest question came out of his little mouth from his inquisitive mind. Daddy, when will I die on the cross? It's the only death he heard about week in and week out in church was that death. My initial thought was to respond by saying, Ethan, rest your mind. You probably will not die on a cross. Not too many people die that way anymore. What I hope God gave me the courage to say as he grew in years is this: son, don't ever let that cross consciousness and the depth of your master's love for you leave your mind. Ponder the mystery of that cost. You may not die on a cross. You'll probably die of old age. But you surely are called to take up that cross each and every day for the sake of others. This following Jesus is no trivial adventure. It is costly. Sometimes it's dangerous. Most days it's joy. It takes us into paths unexplored. It can stretch us beyond the limits of our past and current commitment. We will stumble as we step out in faith. But under the shadow of the cross and amid the light of resurrection hope, we follow even as we stumble, and we stumble even as we follow. But amid the seriousness of the claim, this following Jesus can also become an inestimable joy, a joy captured well in the verse from one of my favorite old hymns. Were the whole realm of nature mine, that were a tribute far too small, love so amazing, so divine, demands my soul, my life, my all.
Amen.